Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Results Show. If you are ready, drop the word hormone into the chat, and we are going to send you our HPA Sex Hormone Insights Guide and our HPA Sex Hormone Guide video clip. So make sure to drop the word hormone into the chat. And we would love to know where you guys are joining us from. Let us know if you have questions. You can also drop those right into the chat. My name is Piper Gibson. I am your host and FDN Director of Course Enrollment. And joining me today is Michelle Robinson, and we are going to be talking about chronic fatigue and hormone issues with FDN. So this is the Real Results Show, where every week we feature real health coaches and health practitioners getting real results for themselves and their clients. So thank you for joining us, everyone. And thank you for joining me, Michelle. How are you today?
Yeah, great. Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I'm super excited to get into our topic today. And I would love to know what prompted you to become an FDN.
Well, it's not a funny story, and probably one that's really common. I was unwell myself, and I was in a corporate career. I was in a global corporate career. I just moved back from working out in Asia Pacific and moved back to the UK, and literally I'd been home a year, and I suddenly just developed this chronic fatigue. And I always say it happened over a weekend, but the truth is it didn't. You know, my body was speaking to me and giving me signals that there was imbalances and things going on, but I just really wasn't aware because they were normal for me. So, you know, I just brushed them off that I woke up every morning and felt absolutely exhausted, and that I woke up with like a sore throat, and, you know, mid-afternoon I was slumping, and yeah. And then I started to get, night sweats at 10 p.m. every night, and these hot flashes, and I was thinking, what on earth is going on with me? My brain wasn't as sharp as it used to be, and yeah, I suddenly thought there's something not quite right going on here. So yeah, I went to the doctors. So my blood tests all looked normal, apart from my white blood count was low, which I see a lot now as an FDN practitioner, and can be really frustrating because I had private medical insurance at the time. And I very quickly got referred to different specialists, and I racked up 9 different specialists. None of them could say what was wrong with me. And I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I was told to go home and rest, and, you know, just do a bit of very low grade exercise, you know, so do a bit of graded exercise and watch my diet. But I'm not really the kind of person that takes a diagnosis like that sitting down, because I've always been quite a curious person and very self-motivated. So I couldn't get my head around that this was it. I was going to be fatigued for who knows how long. And I knew that I'd been to India 2 weeks before I had this sudden kind of 24-hour sick bug. And then I went into this chronic fatigue, which actually kicked me out of my corporate role. I thought I was just having this like mini sick bug and that it was going to go away. But then, you know, 1 week turned into a month, into another month. And before I knew it, I never ended up going back to the corporate world. And I discovered FDN because a friend of mine had done a stool test through another practitioner, and she'd mentioned FDN to me, and I thought, you know what, that's what I need. I went to India. 2 weeks later, I got sick. I've obviously picked up some parasite or something dodgy that's caused this chronic fatigue. I need to get to the bottom of it. And that's where my journey started.
Wow, you know, that really kind of resonates with me. I think a lot of us out there have had our own health journey, and that's how we end up at FDN. So and then you continue on that journey, that healing process. So we're going to dig into that a little bit further. When did you graduate from the course? How long did it take you to complete it?
I did use the full time to complete it. I was really, really sick when I started the course, and I graduated in January 2016. But I found that I kind of moved forward in steps to do the testing on myself. And then I found I had so many imbalances, and my brain, I just couldn't retain things at the beginning. So then I ended up going back and just redoing the course when I cleared my brain fog a little bit.
Well, that's awesome. We have a lot of people who actually reach out to FDN and they're in a very similar situation. They just feel like they want to work on themselves. They want to get this education, but they aren't sure that they can get through it when they're sick. So I think that's really encouraging for other people out there for sure.
Yeah, the great thing about doing it, even when you are sick and you think you might not be able to do it, is that, you know, we do have access to the course for a long time. We have access to a great community support. And I mean, you know, having that access to other practitioners and your mentor, you know, for the help throughout the course as you're learning is just invaluable, because you can really, by going through the course Biohacking Your Own Health, it's such a learning experience, because you're obviously testing lots of things on yourself and you're very motivated to look for solutions. I certainly was, because I wanted to get out of the situation that I was in and no one seemed to be able to help me.
Yeah, I think that's going to be super encouraging for a lot of people who are watching today. So let's talk a little bit about how you built your practice. You've been an FDN for a while, so I know you're established. So how did you go about building that clientele that you have?
So initially I worked, I have two hats at the moment. I've just niched into something else last August, and I can tell you a little bit about that. So initially I niched in chronic fatigue syndrome and gut issues, because they were the two big kind of cornerstones of my own health and my own healing journey. It turned out that I actually had chronic Lyme disease, which I would never have known had I not gone through FDN, because it was through the FDN program and seeing lots of other people suffering with similar symptoms to me and talking about Lyme that it came on my radar. And I actually went to my local doctors for a Lyme test. In fact, I had 2 Lyme tests and they both came out negative. But when I actually went to the German lab and had a proper Lyme test, it did come out positive, because basically the Lyme test that's available on the NHS, sometimes you can be lucky and get a positive, but sometimes it cannot be the greatest test. I don't quite know what's going on with the lab there. So I've lost my train of thought now. Sorry, I've just gone off on a tangent. My building my business, yeah, sorry. So I was focusing on chronic fatigue and gut issues and working through chasingvitality.com. In my mid-30s, about a year after I found out that I had chronic fatigue, my period completely stopped and I was diagnosed with premature ovarian insufficiency, which put me into a premature menopause in my mid-30s, which was a complete shock. I really wasn't expecting that. Early menopause, premature menopause didn't run in my family. I didn't have, genetically, I don't have the genes to suggest that I would go through this early. And all I can think of for the reasoning around that was the fact that I had all of these underlying conditions, or this underlying viral Lyme disease. I had gut imbalances, sluggish liver. My hormones obviously were completely tanked. Here I was in menopause, and I do actually, since last August, I've started to niche down as well in the early menopause. So I have earlymenopause.co.uk. And I work with women of all ages and stages of menopause, particularly focusing on premature ovarian insufficiency and early and premature menopause.
So on the note of the lab testing, which you talked a little bit about, how do you feel that using the lab testing and that FDN approach has helped you personally, but also your clients?
Yeah, so for me personally, as I mentioned, I didn't really get anywhere with the normal medical profession. It was really frustrating. I kept being bounced from one place to the next. And the thing with the normal medical profession, they're very insular. So you go to a specialist for the endocrine system and you go to a specialist for, the GI system. It's all really separated. And what I really liked about FDN was that it was a whole body approach, and not just focusing on labs. Yes, labs is a really big draw to studying FDN, and it was something that drew me in because I wanted that stool test. But actually, it's not just about the labs. And I think that's really great that FDN teaches you that it's not just about treating the test, it's treating the client as a whole. And you were really taught to look at all aspects of the body, you know, with the dress, the 5-pillar system of the diet, the rest, the exercise, the stress reduction, the supplementation, because all of this is foundational work to healing. And it seems so simple when I just say it like that. And you might think, gosh, well, yeah, well, you know, my diet's pretty good. You know, when I was sick, I was green smoothieing every morning. I was eating whole foods. I was cooking from scratch. I thought I was eating really well, but actually my blood sugar was, you know, on this roller coaster. And I didn't realize what a stressful effect that had on my body. So having access to the lab tests, for me, I'm quite a mindy type, I suppose you could say. I like to see things on paper. I find that really motivating. And the fact that the lab tests that you get through these functional lab tests are very different than what you get from the normal doctors. So they tend to be a lot more, they're a lot deeper, they have a lot more markers, they give us more information, and they're not diagnosing disease. They're looking for the hidden health trends, the nutritional deficiencies, the underlying causes of why you have a symptom. And that's what really drew me to the FDN. And what I love about this whole principle is that, you know, we're constantly working like a detective of unpeeling the layers back to find out, yes, okay, you might never ever get to the root. Like I you know, what is the root cause of premature ovarian insufficiency? Actually, probably about 5% of people know what that is. I have a belief that mine is from underlying viruses and infections, because that's what, you know, I was experiencing in my own healing journey. But just peeling back the layers and getting to those underlying causes and healing that level and moving and healing that level. It's the same on the emotional side. I'm trained in quite a few other emotional and mindset modalities, which I do also incorporate with my FDN work. And it's the same kind of principle. It's rolling back and getting to those underlying causes that's causing the symptoms, rather than focusing on dealing with just the symptom. Because when we deal with the symptom, you know, we just mask it, don't we? We mask it for a week or so, or a month, or it goes away. You know, we do some fad diet or something for a couple of weeks and we might feel better, and then it all comes piling back. So it just doesn't work.
That's that underlying stressor. So, you know, you're putting a Band-Aid on it, but in your body, you're still having that chaos, that metabolic malfunction going on. So it just ends up like a snowball every time. Is that Lyme test something that you work with in your practice? The German?
Yeah, I do. I work with it. It's from a German lab. Okay. Yeah.
So Kimberly, in just a minute, we are going to talk about how you can get in touch with Michelle, and you'll be able to connect with her, and she will definitely be able to hook you up and talk to you about that Lyme disease test. If you guys are just joining us, welcome. I am talking to Michelle Robinson. We are talking about hormones and chronic fatigue and overcoming those issues through FDN. So if you are just joining us, make sure to drop the word hormone into the chat so that we can send you our guide and video clip for today. One of the things that I love, Michelle, about FDN is the FDN community. So I would love to know how the FDN community has supported you in your business and your own health endeavors.
Oh, massively. In fact, do you know, it's really funny because in my mind, I sometimes say that FDN was this amazing foundation to leap me into this whole new career, but also into a whole new way of healing. And from that, I've led to other spaces, and I can attribute a lot of that to the community, because there's so many great different professionals in the community that have their own, their own specialisms. A lot of people have been through chronic health journeys themselves and bring in that knowledge and learning that they've had from their own experiences. And it was from the community that sometimes at the beginning it can feel a bit overwhelming, because people will be talking about things and you sit there and you think, oh my gosh, what are they talking about? I don't know if you experienced that at the beginning, but it was like, hang on, did I miss something? But this is what's so great about it, because especially if I had chronic illness, And Lyme disease, these chronic infections, they're multifaceted. They affect all the different systems of the body, and they have to be looked at as a whole in the body. And when you're in a community with lots of different people and they're talking about this and have you thought about this, and it does encourage you. And it's like we don't know what we don't know until we know, if that makes sense. And if someone comes up with something and you're like, what are they talking about? And then you start researching in, and before you know it, you're like, oh my goodness, this is me.
Yeah,
this is another part of my jigsaw. So I think it's absolutely invaluable, the community. And there's some, everyone's very, very supportive, no matter where you are in your functional nutrition journey, because we've all been there. We've all been newly graduated. We've all newly been starting with clients. We've all come from different healing backgrounds. We've all come from different career backgrounds as well. And even in terms of, helping build your business in terms of like pricing and marketing and, maybe dealing with difficult clients, because let's face it, that you have different challenges in a business. And when you're a sole practitioner, you are everything in that business. You're not just the practitioner. You've got to do all the admin, and you've got to do all the marketing, and you're constantly learning and updating your skills. So there's a lot to it. And I think it's really important to have a supportive community to be able to reach out to.
Yeah, I really love the FDN community. It's always a great resource for anything and everything that revolves around FDN. Do you work full-time, part-time? Are you virtual? Do you work in person?
So I've always had 100% virtual practice. And the reason for that is I wanted the freedom to be able to work and live anywhere. And also my partner actually contracts for work. So if we'd be apart a lot, unless I moved a lot. So I didn't want a bricks and mortar where I was building a business and then having to move. So yeah, the virtual, especially now, everybody wants to come online, but it works really well for me, because obviously the test kits get sent directly to the clients. If there's test kits where people need a blood draw, that's quite simple to organise. There's private clinics that do them, or even often the local doctor's surgery. Well, you take your kit in and it'll have clear instructions of what they need to do. So it's really easy. And then the test results come back to me. I have online consultations and then coaching sessions with my clients. So yeah, it's always been 100% virtual. I do work in my clinic full time. But when I say full-time, I'm not working full-time with clients. I'd say I probably work 3 days with clients, and then I spend 2 days improving my skills, learning, marketing, doing all the other stuff that we need to do as a sole practitioner.
Will you speak a little bit about your ideal client and then how they can get in touch with you?
Okay, so it's a bit confusing, but I do have 2 hats. So my initial niche, and something that I'm very good with, is chronic fatigue and hormone issues and gut imbalances. So anything with fatigue issues, burnouts, Lyme, I work with all of those areas, mold illness, it all kind of comes in. I experienced it all, Hashimoto's. I had so many imbalances that through my own journey, I've ended up kind of going towards that niche. Like I mentioned, so I do work with men and women in that practice. Like I mentioned, though, last August, I niched down into earlymenopause.co.uk as well, where I focus on women in early and premature menopause, because what I'm finding in the menopause space is, the hormone replacement is actually just a part of the jigsaw for, the medical piece for menopause is just a part of the jigsaw. And for early menopause women, it is advised that you go on hormone replacement. Now, obviously, as an FDN, I'm not a doctor, so I can't prescribe hormones, but I can work with you on all the other areas. And what I found in my own experience was I had all of these menopausal symptoms. And as I brought my body into balance and worked through, peeling back those layers, getting to those underlying causes, around 95% of my menopausal symptoms fell away. And then I started seeing it in my clients who I was working with, who were maybe going through menopause, but also had maybe come to me with gut issues or with chronic fatigue. And it just so happened that their menopausal symptoms were falling away. And I was like, hang on a minute, there's something in this, because I was starting to see a trend that when we arrive in menopause, obviously, that perimenopause, that time leading up to menopause, the hormones are going crazy. They're fluctuating a lot. We start to have lots of different symptoms: joint pain, hot flashes, brain fog, fatigue, low libido, vaginal dryness. All these things can be happening to the body. And even at menopause and postmenopausal, some women can still experience some of these symptoms. But what I'm finding is, as we focus on the cellular health, on those 5 pillars again, the diet, rest, exercise, supplementation where needed, the stress reduction, peeling back the layers, healing the gut. The gut is really the foundation of your health, and bringing down those inflammatory markers and balancing that roller coaster blood sugar, which so many people seem to have, no matter how healthy they seem to be. These menopausal symptoms are falling away, and it's really making me wonder, are women are arriving at menopause, whether it's early, whether it's premature, whether it's abnormal age, burnt out. We're so stressed these days. We've got these lots of stressors coming at us, whether they're the internal stresses of the imbalances in the gut and the systems of the body, whether they're external stresses, which we know all about, the work stress, the financial stress, the kids stress, the illness stress, all of these, moving house, getting married, all of these external stresses. And then there's perceived stresses as well, which aren't talked about a lot, because I could have a stress and you could have the same stress, but we can deal with it in very, very different ways. And these can really affect how our body reacts and our hormonal balance as well. If we're in constant stress all the time, we're not going to be having balanced hormones. So it's about looking at both the internal and the external and taking the whole picture into account.
How can people get in touch with you, especially for the Lymes? I know somebody had a question about that. So how can people get in touch with you?
Okay, so I've got chasingvitality.com. So you can find me there. You can also find me at earlymenopause.co.uk. And I'm also on Instagram as Early Menopause Coach.
Do you have a number one tip, tool, resource, maybe a piece of information that you have learned from FDN that has made all the difference in your personal health or as a health professional in order to help you really get those real results?
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that functional lab tests are great. They're like this shiny object. And I find a lot of people are just like, oh, I want to run this and I want to run that. But I think it's really important that you work with a practitioner who knows the different tests out there and who really, works with you and does a deep history with you to really understand what's happening with you and correlate your symptoms, and also look at which tests would be good for you to run right now. Because I think, it's really easy just to run a test, but if you're just going to treat the test, or the test isn't going to change anything, or you're not going to do anything about the test results, and there's no point in running it. It really is about a whole body approach and really looking at, where am I? Where are the gaps? How can I get from kind of A to B? This gap in between, my wellness gap, how can I fill it? And what tests do I need? What's going to give me the best bang for my buck? What's going to give me the best, information for me to move forward in my health journey right now? So I think it is really important to work with a practitioner, I think, who knows lots of different tests and who is trained, like FDN does train you in different tests to look at the whole body rather than just 1 or 2 tests or just running a test randomly.
Do you have a piece of advice you'd like to share with health coaches or other professionals who might be watching us today?
Oh, Do I have a piece of advice? Keep going. You're doing a great job. The world needs you. We are becoming so imbalanced. There's so much information out there, and I think it's just really confusing. You know, we can go on Dr. Google. Anyone can go on Dr. Google and do a little search for something, and then before you know it, you have every opinion, every different avenue to go down, and you're just completely lost. And, you know, health coaches, yes, we need you. The more, you know, broad we can become with our skills as a health coach, bringing in testing, bringing in mindset work, bringing in emotional work, looking at the whole body and the whole picture, you know, the better practitioner we're going to be, and the better we're going to be able to serve our clients and heal the world, for want of a better cheesy line. But yeah.
I could not agree with that more, because I do feel like the internet is so overwhelming. And I think a lot of people start out by Dr. Googling and working on themselves. And then they're very overwhelmed because they're like, well, this didn't work, and I tried this and that didn't work. And they don't have that clear step-by-step process that I think health coaches, FDNs, really know how to provide.
Yeah, and when you research symptoms, you might get a list of 12 symptoms, but every single illness probably has the same 7 as every single. So it's just so confusing.
Yeah. What about people out there who are struggling to get results for their health? Those are the people that are Dr. Googling. Do you have any advice you want to share with them?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this the other day, because it's funny, isn't it? When you don't expect yourself to be ill, you don't realize what illness is until you experience chronic illness. And even when you experience chronic illness, you don't think it's going to go on for ages. So you think, I'll be back at work next month, or this is just a passing bug. And then you have this realization that it might not be. This is something that is continuing in my life. And that could be not even chronic illness. That could be just something really uncomfortable, like gut issues and bloating. And, you know, a really chronic IBS, having to run to the toilet and getting caught out is not a good place to be, right? Or even hormonal issues, having different hormonal symptoms, it can really, really affect your life. It can affect your moods. So anything that really affects your quality of life is, yeah, it's just getting to those underlying causes of those is just so huge.
I think a lot of people don't realize how bad they feel until they feel amazing. And then they look back and they're like, wow, I felt so bad. They don't realize that they're so kind of wound up and their body's so used to that chaos going on.
Yeah, I can remember I was about 6 months into my healing journey. I hadn't even found FDN at this point. And I remember going out for lunch with a friend, and she started to talk about, my new normal had gone, you know, this was my energy normally, and now this was me normal. But this was my new normal. And I didn't realize that I'd been up there. So I didn't realize how bad I was until we started having a conversation. I was thinking, gosh, I can't do that anymore. Or I can't remember that anymore. Or, oh, actually, I can't. And it was actually, it was quite, you know, it was depressing. It was upsetting. But what was the awareness there was, oh my gosh, I hadn't realized that. I thought I'd got a bit better, but I haven't. You know, I'm still really struggling in so many ways that, yeah, it's interesting how we can, and people with things like, you know, the amount of people I meet and I ask if they're having daily bowel movement, if they're constipated, and they'll say, no, I'm not constipated. And then it turns out they have daily, you know, bowel movements twice a week. But it's normal for them because they've done it, that's been them all of their lives. And they don't realize the importance of daily bowel movements for detoxification, for our energy, for our health. It's just so important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Michelle, you know, thank you so much for being on the Real Results Show today and to share your insights with others and how that they can get those real long-term results. One more time, if people are interested in getting in touch with you, can you go ahead and give them your information?
Sure, you can find me at chasingvitality.com or earlymenopause.co.uk or on Instagram at earlymenopausecoach.
If you guys are just watching the replay, make sure to drop the word hormones into the chat, and we are going to send you our guide and video clip for today. So make sure to drop that word in the chat. If you are ready to change your life, change your career, become an FDN, go to functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com/counselor, schedule a call with one of the FDN course counselors. We will gladly answer any of the questions you have about the course. And thank you once again, Michelle, for joining me. It was a fabulous, enlightening conversation. And we will be back here same time, same place next week for the Real Results Show. Bye, everybody. Thanks for
everyone. Bye.
Bye.